Welcome, everybody, to our Spring LAN preview. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your time here today. But we have a special treat because we'll have Esports Weekly going on within the future, and this is kind of our beginnings to that entire process. My name is LaTigress, but I'm not here alone. I am joined by Pretty Hair and Gormizer.
Oh, no. Now we're on there. Okay. Hey,
Hey
guys. Yeah, hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to our special LAN preview show.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be a fun month.
Yeah, it is,
Busy
definitely.
month, but a fun month.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Busy months are the best months, though.
We kind of hinted at it during some of our broadcasts throughout the week that, hey, we're taking a little bit of a break on PGS or PCS, but it's not for lack of content. It's the fact that it's our LAN season for the spring, and we have back-to-back events, and we're going to be going through all of them today. As you can see on the left side of your screen, some of the things that we'll be talking about. Some a bit more obvious than others. We'll get a little...
yeah, there's a little something left to be desired there with some of those headlines, but we'll get there. We'll get there, Chad. Just ride along with us.
We will for sure get there. But first off, let's go ahead and talk about the PPL Finals, which will be happening May 16th, I believe it is, mid-May. It's on a Wednesday.
Yep.
And I'm super stoked to actually see all the teams we've been watching throughout the PPL coming to the LAN. What are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the culmination of the PPL. It's going to crown us, an official winner there between North America and Europe. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and it's always good to see that sort of international competition, right? This is sort of the start of that. We'll have a ton more of it for you guys during that whole month of May.
And after seeing how great these teams were able to perform and adapt, I want to say, over the entire season, being able to see them kind of after a little bit of time where they have some practice, maybe something in secret coming up, and then come back full force, I think is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I don't know, the meta's probably not going to change too much here. I think the overarching balanced philosophy of the game design team this year is to slow down a little bit, right? Let the players sort of figure it out. That's what we did going into the World Championship. We had a very stable patch, and I think that allowed the players to figure out a lot of different strategies, going into all different types of facets of the meta and figuring out how to beat things, because it wasn't changing. There was going to be no balance changes. They had to figure it out.
And it's always extra interesting because we get to see NA and EU clash. So first touching on NA with your top seed G2 Esports going the entire time undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, they still remain the best hope for North America, I think, in any of these international competitions. They've never looked scarier than in this split of competition since they won their victory at DreamHack Valencia.
It's just one of those things where they have enough players that can pretty much just play anything that you really want them to. If something comes into the meta or something is really phenomenal, the next game you can bet they could adapt to it and try to figure that out.
Yeah.
So they've been really good at being able to just say, well, that's really good right now. Let's just go ahead and try it.
Yeah, and it's never felt like they've always picked wacky stuff just because they could, but now it feels like that wacky stuff is starting to actually align with what is going to get them wins in that win column. And specifically, I think they're really buckling down and practicing Eevee because they know they can't let that go for free against Europe.
Getting to see also people like Dosubs flex onto different picks, and you've just seen that across the board. But Eevee's been a big talking point, I think, in both regions because there's for sure been some show out from some players compared to others.
Yeah, I mean, she's the best character in the game, right? She's completely up to that player to make it work. It's not something that's plug and play. Unless you're nuts, you can't really even make it work at that high level play. It looks very lackluster if you don't have that Eevee instinct.
And it's one of those things that there's kind of, I want to say, a duality to her because first off, you have to hit your shots, which a lot of these players can do regularly, but then when you adapt that with the movement of Eevee being able to blink and then flick around, find any shots like that, it just becomes a lot more in-depth than you really need. So you have to have that, I think, in your pocket, and you just have to hope the other team can't beat you.
You have to have an eye for it. You have to have an eye for the angles and for where the defense or where the weaknesses are in the enemy defense to be able to exploit that. And then you got the guys like Fisheko who can hit those mid-range shots. Lazy on a good day, he's going to hit those mid-range shots, and then it's just all over for you.
The players themselves kind of just shape the meta as time goes on, and you saw the Zingenos combo coming through.
Yes.
iDrop Body's playing really well on that, and just having the ability to completely turn around games.
Specifically, the Guillotine Torvald combination with Zin has been disgusting. It was the only team G2 were able to pull it off the way that they did. I don't know. They pulled it off on Ascension Peak. I think that was maybe a combination of just how frantic that map was when it released. But I mean, G2 really hit the ground running with that particular combination that no one has since done as well.
And I've been really impressed with the fact that they've been able to adapt the meta kind of like to their own playstyle where, we saw teams kind of like Fnatic eventually shift away from playing Genos to just take him. We'll just deal with it. And they were kind of able to just grab any other support they wanted.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Cutie, I mean, he is sort of the reason for that, right? He has the ability to play all different types of supports.
And speaking of just bringing something to the forefront, you have the Grover here, but also the Pip is something that has become a huge talking point across multiple regions, but it's his ability to navigate on that champion with the addition of people like Wardoom working into things like Rejuvenate that have really enabled that composition.
Yeah, that's a great point. Rejuvenate, how stoic they are and just that they are going to buy this almost every game, almost every member of this team. That's what Cutie attributed them to winning that set against Envious, because Evil Eye had Rejuvenate 2 on his Cassie, which is not something you're typically going to be like, all right, that's an auto buy. But late game, they always make sure they have like at least tier 2 of it. That's what allows those big mega potion heals to actually still be a factor in the late game.
And they're one of the only teams so far that we've seen, I want to say very successfully every single time, run Pip as a solo healer and make it look like it's seamless. It's one of those things that other teams pick it up and they kind of feel, I want to say, like lacking in the healing department. They want someone else to kind of come in and help that up, or if they go Genos, they might have them kind of dual healing both of them. But Pip, specifically when Cuss plays it, looks like it's at a completely different level, and with the damage output he has along with the healing, it just becomes insane.
In times past, it was attributed just to the communication and the way that G2 play that pick. But now I think with the changes recently to Pip that allows him to break line of sight with his heals, that has opened it up for a lot more people to be able to do it without having to ingrain that communication and that play style in their team.
Because with G2, one of their strengths is the fact that they seem to trust each other a lot. Early on in the weeks when we actually got to hear from Cutie during one of the interviews talking about when they had someone flex, it was because, hey, you felt like playing this pick. And we said, you know what, we're going to let you do that. So we'll have to see what G2 ends up bringing to the table at the future PPL finals. But we also have Team Envy showing up from that region, and they had a little bit of a battle out there in the end, but eventually made it through.
Right. They didn't actually, and this is something I'm curious to see going forward, if it has any implication. They didn't have to win their games in the final week to get their spot. Renegades just lost. They just got 3-0, but that's because G2 are just that damn good. And they looked even better. You could see G2 having a better showing against Envy, but Envy are a team that I think no one is sleeping on at this point. They've prepared so hard. They're working so hard because they're so new. They're so fresh. There is no veterans on this team. There is no Cuskey. There is no guys that from that DreamHack Founders Land in Sweden so long ago. There's no guys, coming from that first World Championship. This is a fresh roster.
And that was the thing coming into this season even. It was just kind of like, well, they're bringing in new faces. Is this actually going to make a big difference for them, or are they just going to be another one of those teams that it's going to take a while for them to get acquainted? And they just blew people out of the park in the first week. It was really impressive to see, coming from the offseason, something that you would expect maybe to flop a little bit, and then being able to kind of take G2 to the distance, take all these other teams down. That it's kind of like, oh, these guys are someone we have to keep our eyes on.
And, most of these tournaments are going to be played on OB70. Big Drogos buff in OB70, a.k.a. big envious buff for Random Noob. I'm just saying.
But we have people like Random Noob that were there during the last season, but we've had the new additions like Rubu, which we just saw on the screen, but Rock Monkey, who was very anticipated going into the season because of his performance in the PGS prior.
I mean, he was disgusting the first time. You see him come in the PGS and you're just like, what? Where'd you come from, homie? Yeah, he brings his monkey to LAN. He's got his own little, Bitey's got that flavor as well, but this guy, he's come onto the scene. He's exploded on. He's a pretty quiet guy. I think, in person, maybe he'll warm up to us a little bit. But, I mean, he's an incredible dude. From the get-go, you watch this guy and you just know there's something special about him.
And just being able to pick on, again, those champions that have kind of risen with the meta, being able to showcase, again, Shaolin looking really good. His Xin was looking phenomenal throughout that clip. And it's just having someone that you can always rely on, which I think is something that some of the teams usually lack, is like, are you going to have this hit-or-miss performance, or are you just always going to be 100%? And he was always there, always performing. And that made the team look completely solid.
It's a good thing, these DPS players, sometimes they get a big head about them, a little ego going. Rock seems like a quiet guy. He seems like he's pretty cool, with his role, with his stardom, with his meteoric rise to fame. But he's still, in that interview we got with him, he was, talking about whatever the team needs, that's when we're going to play. Other than that, put me on Shaolin. We're going to get the GG. Like that type of situation for this guy. So, I mean, he's definitely one you want to have rocking your jersey.
Well, that's one thing that I loved about his disposition when we got to talk to him is he is pretty calm and pretty quiet, but then if you ask him about how he believes his performances, he's not afraid to recognize the fact that he is a good player, but also that need to help the rest of the team. And another team that actually is really great with their synergy and has been a powerhouse for quite some time throughout the season is Fnatic, showing up undefeated in their region for the PPL.
And in Europe, right, which is traditionally just the best region. This is the region that always makes it to these finals, always gives us a champion, always crowning themselves at the top. They are the region to beat. Let's just call it how it is. Fnatic have been playing this 3 DPS meta for so long, and I've loved to watch it. And it's a new thing for me still, because I'll never forget, at the PPL finals last year for season 1, I was talking to Bird from NIP, and he's like, this is just Virtus Pro's meta. And before that wasn't a thing. Long time ago, it was just the same 5 champions, maybe 1 or 2 different, but it was mirror matched in Paladins. Then we put in the draft, right? But there was still, 15, 20, 25 champions. There was really still the same probably 10 to 14 that you would see every game. Now it's just not the case anymore. There's so much that's viable that all these different styles are being running. Triple frontline, double frontline, single frontline, we got triple supports, all this wacky stuff, and this was a stylistic choice by Fnatic in Season 1, so this is why it's paying off for them now, because they're just so good at it by this point.
And it just looks smooth when they were able to pick it up. Theo has been the one, I think, to be able to just kind of frontline solo like no other. It's just one of those things that some players have been able to make it work, but he makes, his team just works around him, it feels like. He just solidifies, he is a rock in the middle, and they can trust him to be alive and well and pushing.
You can't rock that type of strategy that Fnatic do if you don't have a decent frontline. If you don't have a great frontliner, decent is not the word I should have picked there. I mean, if you don't have a guy that can be battling against sometimes 2 or even 3 other frontliners and still holding and creating some space, stopping bleeding on the point when it matters most, you don't pull this off without a frontliner like Theo.
Well, and that's the thing, when we asked Jared about his thoughts on the current meta and how it's shaped in this other direction, his response was that it's nothing new to them. It's something that they've been used to for a while. And that fact that they can just go ahead and hop on something with so much comfort while other teams may be taking a bit of an adjustment period has just amplified their already existing strength.
And you have to remind people that they did make a major roster swap. They put Isbitner into the main lineup, and this is a team that could still be growing together, that could still be getting better. Bittner, coming from a very successful roster, knows what it is to win. He's not going to have those LAN nerves going into this season. He's not going to have any really expectation or doubts about his performance and what he can do in an environment like this. And that style, the reason I think this worked so well for Fnatic even in Season 1 was because just the raw talent on this roster and just how fast they could play. They just overwhelm you. Whether or not there was a strategy or some plan they were going to execute, they just hit you so hard, so fast from so many angles that you simply couldn't put up a defense fast enough.
And I think this is the quote that we've probably used the most with him, but Elvin Path saying that he was the best player in the world. And I feel like Bittner just continually stacks on top of that, being able to say, like, well, here's a little proof of that, and here's a little bit more proof of that, here's a little bit more. He just plays like no other. His mechanics are always on point, and it's always a treat, I want to say, to be able to watch him, just because the things that he can pull off on pretty much any champion you give him makes a big difference for Fnatic. And I think while they could have found success even without him, having him has made it just much easier.
And you look at this whole roster, I think it's damn near impossible to say there is a best player in the world at Paladins. It has to be a best player at X or Y or Z, because there is just so many factors that go into it. But when you look at all 5 of these guys on Fnatic, there is a conversation to be had around best at X or Y or Z or whatever that might be, whether it's frontline, whether it's support, whether it's damage, whether it's EV. Shoutouts to Fishy. There is a conversation around each and every one of these Fnatic members that is going to make them potentially one of the best at something that they do.
Yeah, and seeing that just as a collective has made them seem nearly unstoppable, even though when going against Na'Vi, obviously a very difficult team to deal with, but going all the way to Game 5, they still just stuck it through in the end, came back with a lot of fire after the PWC.
I mean, how much resilience did they prove that they had after that run through the losers bracket? They had to sit up on stage probably, what, I don't know, 8-10 hours grinding,
long time.
Game after game after set after set. And they talked to me, and it could have possibly been worse. We had to do some juggling around because we were like looking at the way the bracket could have potentially played out with them in it. We're like, they could be up there all day. We got to give them some type of rest. But they just had a terrible start to PWC. That just like Nocturnes, they went back to the hotel, nose to the grindstone, they didn't give up, and they found themselves in the finals.
And I think that's the kind of resilience that is
where they got spanked, but
well, that's the kind of thing. They took that loss, And then they came back into this season. They were like, we're not letting that happen again. And they get close, almost getting taken down by Na'Vi, but they didn't get touched. They win that one, and then the next time they go up against them, they make it look easy.
So they did get pretty destroyed in some aspects of the PWC, and but they also did show out here in the PPL against Na'Vi, your current world champions, who, despite losing a set against them, have looked strong in their own right when facing anyone except for Fnatic.
And they're still trying to, by all means, find that new identity, find the identity with 3 DPS Phoenix, normally flexing into that role. We even saw 4 DPS where Grandpa Spunky had to get off support and play a little bit with the boys and throw some DPS out onto the field. But they are still a team that is coming into that identity, and they are a team that knows how to lose, knows how to get better, knows how to adapt and find new ways to win. So do I have any reservations about what Not a Sincere can accomplish heading into the season? Absolutely not. I think there's still definitely a top dog in this race, and if you sleep on them at this point, you have just not been paying attention.
And that's where I kind of say that you gave them 5 weeks in the season to adapt. And now we're giving them a few more weeks overall to get ready for this LAN. It's going to be something that I expect to see them come in feeling a lot more comfortable with some of the things that it felt like they were trying out, trying to figure out, does having Phoenix play Shaolin work? It's like, well, it works, but can you make it better? And that's always going to be what they're looking for. They always hit that better mark. And I kind of expect to see them come in, even though they weren't at #1, still really solid.
He needs the confidence, though, to be able to run it. Not a Sincere will not win any sort of championship if everyone is not absolutely confident in the role, if everyone is not absolutely giddy to be playing what they are getting in the draft. I always point back to, I think we were doing a listen-in during a draft or something, or maybe I was just standing close enough to Fnatic at one of our LANs last year where Fishy started to giggle because he knew he was going to get Bomb King. That's the type of draft you need to be getting when you want to win these international titles. He was like, oh, they goofed up, like they, with an expletive in there, they effed up. I'm getting the king. I'm getting Bomb King here. Let's go, baby. Like, that's what you need to be getting these DPS players, every single one. If you can get everyone like that in the draft, that's when you're winning championships.
I love that. I love that. And on the side of Na'Vi, they have that opportunity to get comfortable with each other. They have the same roster they did at PWC and some great personalities there. But making that continuous work through, you saw that Phoenix even tweeted about having to work on his DPS, and it was doing great, but he wants to get it up to that level. So at least being able to rely on your teammates that you've been with for quite a while. That's
a super, great mentality to have, definitely going into it. One person that is not going to be slowing them down, I don't think, in any facet. Not to say Phoenix was. We never really felt that he needed to get better, but it's about expanding. It's about being flexible and performing like that, like his Shaolin impact on multiple things, because there was a lot that could potentially come at you, and I think Creatives is one of those guys that's why we had to give him the MVP crown at Worlds. He's just playing so much, and it just doesn't stop. It doesn't slow down.
And that was let up. Coming into this season, it was kind of one of those things. I think it was actually Na'Vi. The first time we were sitting around where we'd been going for a month in the PGS, and we're just like, well, no one's been playing Shaolin. Don't expect to see it. Creatives pulls it out first game and then just bodies with it, switching around from that to flanks to whatever he really wants to play. It just looks so solid every single time.
There's always an extra keen eye on whoever the MVP was from the last World Championship, right? You want to see if they're staying up to that consistency. We all put them on a high pedestal, but Creatives hasn't shown any sign of letting up from that path of continued just momentous success.
I mean, he's been incredible throughout. I don't think, when you are at that MVP, that's sort of what's expected of you, but you have to almost remind people every now and again, hey, this is still, the world's MVP. This is still a guy that's absolutely incredible. It's almost, yes, you come out and you expect that of him, but I think you still have to, give credit where credit's due. Give the man props for continuing to get better in a meta that has never asked more flexibility of these teams. He has been a guy that has always been there for his team.
And having someone like that, when you are having someone like Phoenix who's kind of switching away from their main role, it gives you at least something to lean back on. Like, there's going to be success at the minimum from a few of your players so that you can kind of afford that flexibility. If things don't go the way you're planned with 1 or 2 members, you at least have 3 that are solid that they can always fall back on, a safety net, pretty much.
We didn't see a ton of Eevee from him or from Not a Sincere. I think that's, especially on LAN, where we were talking, there was a conversation around I Drop Bodies maybe playing it. Ping affects these blaster players, and Eevee specifically is a very, ping when it's frantic. When you have low HP, let's call it like it is. Sometimes, you blinked out, but you're dead on your screen because of ping. That's just the nature of online gaming. But in LAN, that's not going to be as big of a factor, so the Eevee's going to be a little bit more crisp. I think it's going to be a big power pick for everyone in Europe. Creative's traditionally the guy to play it, and I think Not a Sincere, if they can get him confidently piloting that. We didn't see much in the online split, so that's going to be a big thing for me going into this LAN season.
The potential for a surprise factor, that's for sure. But everybody, I'm sure, wants to know exactly what the bracket is going to look like for the PPL finals. So taking a look at that on your screen now, it's going to be G2 Esports versus Team Envy, Fnatic versus Natus Vincere, and then your finals.
Yep, guaranteed NAEU final here in G2 Esports. I mean, these were both of the best sets during the PPL online split. I mean, we're just going to get the run back of that, and then hopefully a final that's even better.
I feel like that first set is going to be the best set that we've seen all season. And then the next set's going to be the best set we've seen all season. I think that EU set's probably going to be where it tops off.
And then the next set's going to be?
If the finals. No, I don't actually know if the finals, because I feel like Europe right now is just maybe a little bit ahead of North America. So far, they've been proving that. But this is going to be the chance to kind of take down whoever is going to actually come through in the Europe side.
I will say in times past, I would agree with you, but I think that, you know, there is that conversation, right? There is the North American, or the EU EVs, right? But I think the North American pips have been a little bit more impressive to me. I think NA, for the first time in what feels like a very long time, is bringing something of their own flavor. Right? G2 have had that flavor for a very long time, but this is where it's like, oh my God, this is getting them W's, right? This is a win condition for them now, and this is something these EU teams are going to have to be worried about. You know, Fnatic, they've been doing their thing for so long. They've gotten so good at. G2 have been doing that same thing with their solo pip and what they've got going on, and they've been getting W's on it as well, so this could be incredible.
Well, with all those flavors in mind, we all came up with a prediction of who we think is going to take the PPL, and a couple of us were on the same page, but one...
I feel everyone looking at me, but I'm not going to look over there.
...was a little... So, actually...
Fnatic, Na'Vi. So talk us through, Gerard. Why?
Well, the way things are going, so just going back to Season 1, it was a different meta, but Fnatic comes out on top, and then when they get to LAN, things had shifted, things had changed, other teams had kind of caught up with the meta, and while Virtus Pro had, I want to say, the strength of it all, you could see, I want to say, like the Flare and Na'Vi being able to grow up. And then, of course, during Worlds, you could see that they had been grinding so hard to get to the top that it looked like they were untouchable until Burrito, or Nocturnes at the time, actually gave them a run. And that was the closest set they had the entire time. So coming into this, knowing that they have a bunch of weeks of prep time, and technically a LAN before they even get here, I think that they are going to be comfortable enough to take down Fnatic. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think that they will be able to at the tail end of it.
No, definitely not going to be easy. They are a resilient team. You have to give them that credit there. They haven't made any roster changes since they won a world championship. They're a team that, you know, not a lot of emotion, not a lot of, I don't know, do they tilt? Are they robots? What happens to them when they take a loss? Like, how do they just bounce back? How do they become so resilient? But in Fishy's Eevee, I trust. I'm Fnatic all the way here.
Well, throughout the PPL, we did have some great plays that are for sure noteworthy, top plays at that. So first thing, talking about Fnatic, there was a great moment from Mr. Jarrett himself with that quad on the Genos, and that was beautiful.
Oh, God. Oh,
that never gets old. Like we could actually just have that on a loop in the green room, and I'd be happy with my life.
It was so great, and the fact that
Can we just run that back one more time while we talk about it? Oh my!
You can just see it again and again, just like Gore said.
Absolutely
totally
delicious.
Cool.
You know, in Spectator, you get to see these line up, and you're like, "Oh, do it!" And Garrett's like, "All right." I'm going to do it this time. He has none of that information of it. He can't see anything but that bush in front of him, and he still got it.
That's what makes it that much more impressive than it already was. And the fact that there's always so much going on, so sometimes we don't always get to see exactly from that perspective when it happened, but we were looking at that at the very moment that it happened. And the next top play, we were as well. And it's something we've been waiting for a very long time, ever since Splitstone Quarry came to the forefront and ClickU made it happen.
I mean, there's a couple of fine details here that make it so special, that they were playing on this side of the map because of Dredge Anchor is a left body originating ability, right? So he is with the strong side. He hit him with the flex. He showed the camera the bicep, and he just ripped him into the fidget spinner. Now, we've seen a couple people try and do this, but you know, it's a delicate dance, right? Because you don't want to kill yourself there. You don't want to flutter into the fidget spinner like Fasheko did a long time ago in Season 1. And the positioning has to be perfect there. But ClickU just had it. He flexed, and he slammed his target in there and just absolutely pink misted him into the grinder.
And it's just one of my favorite things about maps. Like, I love map hazards. I don't know where that, like, originated, but it's something that's just stuck with me over years.
They're the best, dude.
Splitstone has been one of my favorites because, like, seeing Torvald ults and trying to push people in or trying to get that Makoa hook to throw it in. So seeing that at the beginning of a game to start a set, like, that was just perfect.
Set the tone for sure. But moving away from the top plays, let's go to a not so hot play that also took place on a Genos.
Lukewarm play.
lukewarm, a little watery here with the good old.
You know, the Fasheko, the Fasheko Flutter. We've got the Bonkar Bonsai into the what is being called the jacuzzi. Seems like more of a well to me.
Well,
but
we were trying to figure out when it happened. I remember on the desk we were like, "What did you said Lassie needs that?" And we're like, maybe he wanted to make a wish,
like
but
the
there
little
was something.
the kid in the well.
Yeah. Look at Lassie. Like Lassie's going to get help.
Yeah. So
Little Bonkar fell in the well.
There you have it, little Malcolm.
Something was going through in his head, but I'm very happy that happened on Ascension Peak.
I mean, incredible stuff. It's been a lot of fun to watch that map, and, you know, it wouldn't be fun without a little flubbed action in there as well.
Well, the PPL Finals, that is one day, but then we actually have a continuation of that LAN weekend with our Masters, which takes place May 17th through 20th. So it's a very long event, and a lot of action will be coming through that.
Oh yeah, this is the meaty one. This is going to be, what is a set? Oh my goodness, we have 11 teams potentially coming here. There's a lot of action, a lot of international. This is where all the teams are going to be showing up.
Yeah, and as a reminder, so PPL Finals will be Facebook exclusive as the rest of the PPL season has been, but Masters will be broadcasted everywhere. So Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you like to watch, we got it for you.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, guys. The first team I want to talk about here, the Gangstars, which have a lot of good things coming their way right now. They won the big phase, we'll say. Phase 7 was the most important one to win for the PGS. Toxicity had been just running train on the NA PGS. They had won something like 6 or 7 of them straight up until Phase 7. And they dropped the one that matters most. But there's actually a lot of ex-PPL players on this Gangstars roster, which probably gives them a good chance here at LAN because they've done it before.
Yeah, being able to have that just experience, some of them being able to come in, some of them maybe having some first LAN jitters, but Neo needs you. However he wants to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways now in the last week since we started.
Let's just go Neo.
Really in on this
because he's the chosen one.
He's the chosen one. He has been really phenomenal, and like you said, when they performed on the week they needed, and a lot of it has been on the back of him. Like his damage and the way he can play is exactly what the team needs.
Yeah, but like we said, there's a lot of ex-PPL players, Zulu and Envy on this roster, and though Team NVS didn't have the greatest showing in Season 1. Envy himself didn't have the greatest showing in Season 1. When you take just a small step down and put him back in the PGS, you remember how good that he is. And you have to say that, there's really nothing mechanically wrong with this guy. And there's a lot of shuffling that went on with the rosters in Season 2. And you have to remember that from all of the PPL to probably the top 3 in most regions for the PGS included, those players are so mechanically gifted and up to par. It's just about finding the right fit, I think, for them. And maybe this is it for Envy. And
just being able to see what they've accomplished so far, and I'm like knowing that hunger's there. The last time an NAPGS team got to come to LAN, they performed phenomenally. And a few of them have now ended up on Team Envious, being able to come through. Rock Monkey was one of the ones there, Rubu. So knowing that is kind of the history of the North American PGS, I kind of expect a lot from Gangstars here.
Yep, and we have representatives from other regions as well. Blazing Hussars are going to make an appearance here in our Masters LAN.
I will say, just looking at this roster, Smutney 1221, the substitute here, and some of these other names, that is a name that, like, first starting just streaming on Paladins game, like way back in the day before even open beta was a thing. That's a name that I recognize, right? So, there's some veterans on this roster.
And this was actually pretty much the exact same thing as Gangstars. Months and months, phases and phases. They're always number 2. Team Cryptic was always beating them every single time. And then the one week it mattered, they're the ones that pull ahead. They get it. They get their trip to LAN. But then just this last phase, this last week even, they got 3-0'd in the semifinals. So it's been one of those kind of flip-floppy, I guess, performances. They've been really strong and had great moments, but they also still have some things they need to pick up, especially coming into LAN if they want to be able to win.
And I know the next team, you like them a lot. It's Kanga.
Yeah, very near and dear to my heart. I mean, these are my boys. These guys have been every single time we brought an Oceanic team. They are the ones. But massive roster changes for them over this seasonal break. Diggy Dog, Chronix, and Joel's are the only 3 names most of you will recognize from the PWC Kanga roster. However, the 2 guys that have stepped in to sort of become the front line and the support for these guys, Nudie and Os Rhino, have quickly become serviceable. And we'll have to see how they perform at LAN. I don't really have anything else to say about them, but what I do have to say is these 3, this trio of Diggy, of Joel's, of Chronix, that they're able to play the DPS roles now, that they're able to maybe find that success in what is a pretty 3 DPS heavy meta, could be what elevates Kenga and allows them, with these massive roster changes, with the loss of Josh Kent and Hades, to still be competing at the level that they once were.
And this past week, Diggy Dog just made Buck look great. It was one of those things that being able to see them kind of dance around the way they've been playing, it still looks phenomenal, still similar to some of the other regions in the PGS where you just have that one team that is so obviously just stronger than everyone. And Kenga coming here always ends up looking really good against the PPL teams.
For a new region like SEA, we have Wolfpack coming to the table, and they've been showing a bit of their strength. They have Creams that have flexed on things like Lex, bringing that to the table, and some great play.
Fieselfie's been here a couple of times now, showing up at DreamHack, and was a big factor for them at DreamHack. The one guy you're watching from this, frankly crippled roster because of visa issues, you're still watching him pretty much by himself. On Eevee shoutouts, again, the player makes that champion, and he was killing people. He was killing international superstars, and it's like, this guy, he's definitely got something, right? It's not really a question, I think, of the mechanical skill of this roster at this point. It's, are they meshing? Do they have the resilience to take a loss at some lands and be able to go back, do their homework, do a Nocturnes where they figure out what went wrong and how to improve?
And this is actually something I want to give shout-outs to another player, Slicky, on the team, because it was one of the things watching them. SCA's always seemed very competitive within each other, but it was always kind of lower down than what you'd expect. Like, PPL's competitive with all the teams up at the top. They were kind of down a rung. But then we got to see Wolfpack step up this past week, and it was phenomenal. And Slicky played an Androxus that just looked amazing. And I really hope to see that come out on LAN, because it was a completely different performance than we'd seen out of them before.
And over in CIS, we have Chroma Space coming to the table. And, I mean, let's face it, Ovum is a huge strength for this roster.
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove. He was the only member from this old roster. Virtus Pro now basically cherry-picked 4 people from his team and brought them into the PPL. He was the man left behind, so to speak. And you seem to be really excited about just what this guy can bring to the table. And he seems like, he's coming into this LAN with a chip on his shoulder.
So these are all Eevee highlights. Before his team got picked up by Virtus Pro, this guy was only frontline, and he's made Eevee, like, the transition seamlessly. He has so far played pretty much every role I think I've seen, maybe not support, but he's been able to flex around multiple DPS, multiple frontlines, fitting whatever his team needs. And knowing that someone like that, the team, I guess, that was before, it was B5 when they actually had the rest of the members of Virtus Pro on there, they were always winning. There was one team that could take a game off of them at most, but they were always there. So knowing that his veteranship in that area is still leading the rest of this team, and they've picked up a lot of good members, I'm excited to see what they can pull off.
Next region up to bat is LATAM, and it's our Burrito boys. Burrito Esports, known as Nocturnes during the PWC. A lot have been tracking what they can bring.
Yeah, made it to a best of 7 with Nautilus, the eventual world champion. So this is a team, don't get it twisted, that could take this event. And that would be, from what I understand, the first time an international team has been able to do that at a high-res esports event. Across Smite or Paladins, no international team is able to been dethroning an NA or EU. This could be the first team to do it.
And the fact that they got so close to doing it already just kind of, I think, further instills some faith in them to be able to pull something off like that, just where they can come in and make some teams maybe look easy, some teams it'll be a little harder. Again, looking at Fnatic and Na'Vi, they're going to be difficult if they ever end up meeting Burrito, but they have been solid every step of the way. They seem to have transitioned with the meta relatively well. They're still kind of playing around with some things.
No one does it as well as Fnatic for me. But that is not to say that 3 DPS is the undisputed best way to play the game right now. If Na'Vi and Burrito can both, still do their double frontline, double DPS compositions and slow Fnatic down enough, they can still win games. But I don't think anyone has been able to do it consistently enough to convince me.
Well, and what this Burrito roster has been able to do is a good sign for all PGS teams. In our prep for PWC, it was, we don't really know exactly where to place these teams because they haven't went against the best of the best. But Burrito with the potential to do it, and our last PGS team that's actually coming on through is Space Station Gaming.
Yeah, this is a team that hasn't made a great impact. They've been to a lot of events, not with the same roster, but there's been a core of these Brazilian players that has been very good for a very long time. Aries, one of the newer additions that they've made. They took a game off of Fnatic at PWC. So again, you can't forget about these international rosters. They are starting to catch up, and if they all can now, with a lot of these double elimination formats coming through, have the ability to just take a loss, figure out what went wrong, study, change, adapt, become better, and just adapt and catch up to some of these international metas. I think they really stand a chance.
And Aries, I remember during Worlds, was kind of the talk of the team. He was the one that was new, but it was fresh and it was strong, even there being able to have a good performance. But a lot of the other members, Mitau and FreezeGod, have been phenomenal in the past on LAN. They've showcased a lot, but like you said, they haven't been super successful, so I think this is the time to come in. They've been working better together now and a lot longer, so I think with that experience as a team, they might have a little bit more hope.
Yeah.
And they do have potential to go take some games off some peeps. So close to the pentakill there, but just has to settle for the quadra Aries, I guess. But overall, the way that things are going to be going with the bracket for our Masters LAN, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Winners bracket and losers bracket being a part of this one. Here's your winners bracket. So you can see some of the pairing. I'm not going to rush through all of them. That's a lot of pairings to name off.
Yeah, this is a thick boy bracket. This is going to be the first time all you guys are seeing this bracket.
Including
It's
players.
a big one. We've got some PGS teams seated in here, rounds 1 and 2, up at the top with Fnatic, of course, near the damn top. G2 as well on the opposite side of the bracket as the EU2 seed, not as sincere. Kanga, that's a tough first round matchup. But like we said, this is the winners bracket, which, of course, you can infer if you're using your brain today, that there is a loser's bracket.
Yeah. So anyone who does end up losing one of those rounds will drop right down to loser's bracket. And we've seen the power of teams like Fnatic when they had to make their run through it and everything. It is possible to make your way all the way back to the top, but I'm very curious to see how the players are going to react now that they know exactly who they're going to be facing off against in the Masters LAN.
Some of them probably about to crack down and start doing a lot of homework. I could say Kanga maybe looking now at every Na'Vi VOD that they could possibly find, but a lot of them, it's going to be interesting. I want to see if they're going to be teams that are bringing something maybe just of a different flavor to try and trip up some of those top teams.
We'll have to see.
Just like we did for the PPL finals, we made our own predictions here for the Masters LAN. Pretty different from before, and also the odd man out has switched on over a seat. We're keeping it with the PGS
I'll
teams.
die on this hill, baby. I will die
I
on
feel like
this
that
hill.
was going to be an obvious one, too. Just the way you talk about Kanga and everything, there's no way you could not
I
put
want
them
to
as
see.
your
I mean,
prediction.
they were so close so many times at taking international titles. I think they're right there, and being so close, I think, keeps you hungry, and I would just love to see them do it. I want to see an international team. I would be very happy to see Burrito take a W as well, but I think an international team taking an international win in a high-res esports would be a monumental thing, and I would love to see it happen.
And I think the great thing is we've chosen pretty much the two teams that have showed that they could do it. They've been able to make that run before and just fallen short every time. I think you could maybe throw SSG into the equation somewhere, but Burrito and Kanga both have looked really strong to me. I had to give it a Burrito because they did take down Kanga.
That's what I love about Kanga is that they were, while they haven't won one yet, they were the first team to be like, holy crap, a heavyweight international player.
And I think we can all recognize the PPL teams that are in this are very strong, and we're here trying to root for that international scene coming through, making a blast for everybody. But Fnatic, who we talked about a lot earlier, particularly Theo and his ability to stand his own on the front line, we actually had Rain Day have an interview with him, so let's hear what he had to say.
Rain Day here. I've actually got a chance to sit down with Fnatic's Theo, the #1 team in the world's #1 tank. He's been willing to give us a little bit of his insight heading into the new LANs coming up both in Vegas and in the Masters LAN here at High Res. So let's take a minute and catch up with this tank and what he has to say about what's happened and what's going to come. You guys lost 4-0 to Na'Vi. I want to know, how did that loss kind of light a fire underneath your team heading into this season and this year? Did it mentally affect you? What was the thought and I think just the environment of Fnatic after you guys went down 4-0?
I mean, losing the set is something we didn't want to have happen, but we were also expecting to not go out in the finals, but definitely go with a fight, which didn't really happen. But we kind of knew after the loss what was going to happen in the future. You know, the team changes, but also the change in mentality and the approach to the game. And, you know, just with any loss in any game, if you lose, you can do one of two things. You can quit and give up, or you can, you know, learn from it, reflect on it, and you use it to motivate you to get better. And fortunately for me, myself and all my teammates, we took the latter option, and we just got super motivated to just go super hard this season.
What do you feel want to accomplish this year?
I just want to win everything. I mean, I have won a LAN before, which is now over a year ago. And since then, I haven't really tasted that win anymore, that victory, that offline victory. So for me personally, I like playing tank. I don't want to change roles. I know it's a lot of tanks playing DPS as well, which I think is fine. And I definitely could do that if I wanted to, but I don't want to because I like playing tank more. As far as that's concerned, I want to carry as hard as DPS can playing a tank. Doesn't matter what tank it is, and I just want to get better at that, improve my own playstyle, and win as many LANs and tournaments as I can. Well, a lot of people ask me how to get better as a tank player, and some tank mates in the game, they approach it by playing only tanks in the game. But if you play against me casuals, you'll most likely see me playing DPS roles, because I already play this tank so much in scrims, and you need to understand how DPS plays well. So if you play a really good Cassie, and then you play a tank against that Cassie, you know what that Cassie is capable of and what you can do. So I think if I do have to give a tip to all the tank mains out there, is make sure you play all the characters as well, so you know what to expect.
You know, what do you guys think is the key to success? Everyone is gunning for your crown. Everyone's figuring out how do we beat Fnatic. You know, what's crucial for you guys to do to maintain your spot at the top?
I think the biggest thing is to approach offline games the same as online games. In nature, you're still playing the same game. You're still sitting on, behind the screen with a keyboard and computer.
Well, there's tips and everything from Theo in that interview, so thank you to Rain Day for bringing that to us. He's enjoying his time out in LA before we head over to Las Vegas with his family and all, but still providing that awesome content. So that's everything that we have about the Masters LAN, about the PPL LAN. Moving on to our console wars, which is actually happening the weekend prior, May 12th through 13th, and there will be 4 teams attending that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and these always are because they get very competitive. Now, this is almost the opposite of the PC scene. North America is the region to beat for these console wars. 2 times now, North American Xbox has seized the crown and held on to it. First at DreamHack Valencia, and again at HRX in 2018.
And with the way things are shaping up, it looks like it's going to still be the same kind of story. Try to beat them off as best as you can. Get rid of that team early, and maybe being able to kind of go forward. But with the way things have been going, and one of my favorite things about it is like the trash talk between the players, being able to get in with that. Like, just knowing that they have, I want to say, like, just a passion for the game that I feel like you don't really get ignited
I think that's just console players, because Smite console had the same thing going on. A lot of quiet players in PC, but not the case in console. They're shouting at each other, blue in the face, veins popping out. Vex Gaming, I think the first one we should really hit on here, has a potential to dethrone one of these North American teams. They've looked really, really good through the online stages. I have to say they've been absolutely dominant in every set that I've watched from them. Incredible sniper play as well, stepping up from World that you can just see these crazy streaks burning already.
And honestly, if you've watched a lot of high-res esports and seen either not only just console but PC way back in the day on Smite, Welshmania, Narc, World Edit, like a lot of players that have been here for a long time that are playing now here on the Paladins console.
Some real gamers in the house. I
expect a lot for them because like they have found that success before, and this is their time to maybe kind of step forward and do it again.
And seeing the fact that picks can be thrown between World Edit and Welshmania, we'll see some great pit play come out of them and blaster play in general. But our next team that we're going to be talking about is Fable. Used to be named Heating Up, so don't get it twisted. This is a strong roster as well.
For the most part, it feels like these console teams, or specifically like the North American PS4, Xbox, it's this flock, this pack of 10 to 15 players that's just going to move around team to team. Wonderful Skeppy back together, I think, is the big story for this team. I think they like to play. I think they enjoy playing together a lot. I think they're both incredible in their roles, wonderful, largely regarded by most of the console scene to be just the best player on console. Plays frontline, though. That's kind of the difference in what I think we see in traditionally, that conversation around best player. I don't really like it overall, but I mean, incredible frontline player for sure. Skeppy, one of the best DPS players, and both those players have wins. Wonderful now with 2 MVPs as well at HRX 2018.
And this was just one of those teams. The first time they came through, it looked like it was going to be maybe close between them and Elevate, which had most of the members that were on the PWC, the Console Wars champions there. But the first week was close, and then every single week after that, they just kept getting better and better and better to the point where the last time they played, they just swept through everyone.
And when you look at a team like Flashpoint, who have been very consistent in their phase wins throughout all of the PCS.
Yeah, as well as who they've brought to these lands. This is a team that has, different org names, whatever, but these 5 guys have been to a lot of these Console Wars lands. They've been competing at the top for a long time now, and I think it's just a matter of time before they either quit or get a W, right? They're going to, one way or another, if they keep coming back, they're eventually going to win something.
As the way things have been going, I don't know if I see them quitting, although I have noticed a lot of the console players
I don't
playing
think so
Paladins
either.
Strike lately. So you never know. They might switch over, make a team there. As the way things have been
They
going,
have. They really have been grinding that Paladin Strike.
It's every single time I'm scrolling on Twitter, I just see like 10 console guys like,
Anyone
"We
trying to
got
play?
fives? You wanna
Who
go
trying
for
to
a
play?
tournament?"
Anybody running scrims right now? Like, oh
At
my
least they play
goodness.
together outside of just Paladin. So you know that they have a lot of, like, I don't want to say like buddiness, friendship between them. So being able to come through. Flashpoint is notable just because I think I don't know if they've ever, or in a while, not taken a 3-0.
Different type of handheld with those ones. But Onslaught is our last team that will be attending, previously known as I Have No Hair, which I don't think applies to anybody on this desk, but
Not me.
Not yet. We'll be watching closely on that one. But looking at OG Comedy, what he's brought to the table, Atomic Boom, we actually saw some interesting Vivian play and everything this last weekend as well.
Yeah, this is a team that, they're almost Virtus Pro-y to me, where they do have that wacky stuff that they like to run.
Yeah.
They got absolutely slaughtered in the first game of their
It was
set
so weird.
yesterday. It was the most just crushing defeat I have ever seen. And I don't get to cast these guys a lot because they're over in the North American side, but like this is the LAN representative. I'm like, all right, they're probably clearly the favorite here, and then they just get bodied on Bright Marsh in like 6 minutes, and I was like, oh. Okay, but then they turned it around. They I guess figured out what they did wrong there, ran a little bit less wacky stuff, and were able to get their feet under them.
These are the guys that there was a few weeks ago I was really curious because I kept seeing Terminus bans against them, and I was just like, why are you doing that? And then one team, they
What are you doing?
They didn't ban it. They just kept picking it, and it looked really bad on the team they were against. Then finally they gave it, I think it was OG Comedy who was piloting it, and it just looked monstrous coming through. They had a new pickup in Richie, which was kind of like a shaky point for me when I first saw him, but then he performed perfectly well on Leon. So everything they've been doing has, again, just been taking steps towards trying to find that win and potentially come ahead here.
Well, we have all kinds of first-time bracket reveals for all of our lands today, and Console Wars is no different. So let's find out who's facing who during that LAN. It's Vexed Gaming versus Onslaught, as well as Flashpoint versus Fable.
Yep, this is traditionally how we always do the console wars. You got your Xbox, EU, NA, and then you've got
Stay
your
true to the
PS4,
name.
Xbox, NA, right? We get the superior region, but the superior platform as well, which is a really cool aspect, I think, to bring in and about these console wars tournaments.
Everything, I think, it's always really interesting to see them when they do get to come through, because you finally get to see, first off, the international play, because there's always like small differences, not only between the consoles but between the regions, but then you get to finally see these guys play up against people that they haven't played up against. With the way the PCS works, they meet teams all the time that they've played with every single week or every other week as it goes. So being able to come in and be like, you've never played this guy, have fun. It's going to be more interesting.
As you said in the past, basically it's 4 different regions that have kind of had to mesh whenever it comes to the LAN. And we made our predictions for this just as well as all of the others. And for once, we were actually all on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, Fable here, they've got a lot of LAN champions, a lot of console wars champions under the belt. They've got MVPs and wonderful, as well as the fact that the rest of this roster, I've had a chance to sit down with some of these guys in the past at HRX and just talk to them about the console scene. And these are just veterans. They just feel like they know so much about every team, every player, every facet of the game. And this is a roster I think can be incredibly flexible in just what they want to run. Whatever ends up being the best, I'm sure, because at this point they can play anything PC can basically play. They'll be studying these lands that we're seeing and all that and really trying to bring their best selves forward.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen Skeppy play a DPS that he hasn't been able to look really good on. And I think that's something that it just goes for the rest of the team. They always look phenomenal. And with the way they've been playing the last couple phases, I just don't see anyone really being able to touch them.
Plus it's NA Xbox.
Oh, yeah. That's
Until they lose, I can't pick anything else.
Well, we'll have to see how things actually shake up in the console wars. But apparently one thing that we learned is that during our little bits of our own personal prep time before we actually go live on camera, it's been recorded for the past week. So we're going to give you a little insight into exactly how we get hype for each of our broadcasts.
Inexplicable, I can feel it in the air. Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Can you feel me?
I think, first of all,
Meme ammunition for
It-
years.
it goes without saying.
Years,
I think
Gore.
Gore is probably our favorite
Who'da thunk it?
dancer of all. And I also admit there are some moments that I'm glad they didn't have on camera to put in, in this video. I think
Gore, the
but-
passion. The passion.
It's for a long time.
No one can question it.
They keep telling me that they were like, and I kept saying it to Anthony because he does the replays. Like, they're gonna give you a feed one day, and you're gonna catch all of the stuff I do behind camera. Because like, I make faces all the time, I dance, I do whatever I can, until we actually go live, and then I just switch to like somewhat serious,
Professional Gore.
somewhat professional.
There exists a Gore outside of professional Gore, and the casters in their natural habitat just seconds before we go live.
Yeah.
What a sight.
It
that was
started with the Blue's Clues notebook and is slowly unfolding through all of the dance moves. We'll have to have a dance session with Gore personally where you can all learn his best moves. But the last LAN that we have to talk about is actually coming up in just a few days, and that is Esports Superstars. Paladins Superstars, everybody, in Las Vegas at Esports Arena.
This one's going to be a ton of fun because it's the inaugural, it's the kickoff, just fun exhibition show match that is going to get us off on our LAN season.
Well, we have talked plenty about all the teams, so let's go ahead and give an insight on the venue where we are actually going to be in Las Vegas. If I'm not mistaken, you can still go ahead and buy some tickets online. We have all of that information on twitter.com/paladinspro. And I mean, it's going to be a really cool thing to go ahead
This is
and
the
attend.
first time that we're going to be able to see OB70 played as well. All of these LANs, from what I'm told by the admin team, will be played on OB70. So hopefully that means we get to see the Primus of House Ico, Mr. Khan. We've heard a lot of this, that, and the other about him. He's been buffed. He's been talked about. I mean, I think this is the match, especially because this is going to be a fun match. This is a show match. This is the exhibition of just all these teams before they really buckle down and start going at each other's throats at these upcoming events to maybe have some fun, throw some people into the fidget spinner, get a little con in our lives.
And it looks like just a great venue to have it at as well. So being able to get these players not only in for another LAN, but where it's happening, I think it's going to kind of bring spirits up. Of course, I'm really excited for it. I've never been to Vegas, but being able to kind of step that up, I'm sure a lot of the players haven't been either.
I haven't been since I've turned 21. And that's a big thing for Vegas.
Well,
You unlock a lot of possibilities, a lot of more mistakes to
whole new
make.
world.
A whole new world in Vegas once you're hitting that
So-
milestone.
I guess we have to make sure that you actually make it to the event
Yes.
on Saturday and Sunday, May 5th and 6th. But let's take a look at the bracket that we have for this showcase between the teams. As you've seen, they have been determined. Team Envy, SK Gaming, Navi, and Gangstars. Then somebody going against Fnatic and G2.
Yep, this is going to be a double elimination as well, so you get to see a lot of international competition, as well as those second chance brackets. And the Gangstars up against Natus Vincere. I'm sure they're happy to have a losers bracket because that is not going to be an easy. Can you imagine though the Gangstars upset Natus Vincere?
The
Let's
PGS
get it.
comes in and sweeps it all away.
El Zulu and the boys back at it again.
This is all very exciting, though, because this event, it's not just a work of Hi-Rez. Allied has been doing tremendous work putting this on. Esports Arena, obviously, you've seen some of the events that they've been doing pretty much every weekend over this past month. And I do have to say, after speaking to individuals from both of those, the venue and the organization, we're very grateful to have them inviting us to do this.
And I mean, how badass is that logo just plastered
yeah.
up on the Luxor? I mean, you can see it for miles and miles around in the city. That is a truly cool thing and special thing that they are doing for Las Vegas.
And just, I think, one of the best cornerstones, like the best way to start kicking it off. I think this is going to be one of the things that starts picking it up in other cities, other places. So they are definitely kind of leading the way for that.
To keep with the theme of today, we made predictions for this LAN just as well. And, I mean, it's not too different from what we had for the PPL final. It's pretty much the same across the board.
Yeah, this one, I think you got to give this one to Fnatic. But you never know because I think this is going to be a more light-hearted event than anything.
Showcase.
In terms of a meme tournament, I think G2 actually have a very strong chance of taking an international meme tournament.
Plus, Navi.
Yeah.
Navi has the potential to win back-to-back LANs if they do win this Las Vegas one.
And then if they can do that, then they can maybe go back to back to back. And I don't know if anyone's actually ever been able to do that for Paladins at all.
No,
but being able to, I mean, even getting back to back is going to be impressive. But if you can push to that next level, then they solidify themselves.
Yeah.
Well, with everything that we've went over today, a action-packed spring LAN season, Nick, what are you looking forward to most?
I think just seeing the way that the game has changed, and I think it's changed a ton. I think undoubtedly you have to say, after the great rebinding and RIP OB64 and all that, it's just going to be such a different beast than what we saw at PwC. It's been a couple of months now since we've seen competition offline, and that's always the best time. It's what I look forward to. It's what I do this for, is to go to those events, to see the players again. We're so blessed to have just the players that we do. We don't have anyone that's just tough to deal with or toxic. I truly just love all the teams, all these players, and it's like I get to see my friends from all around the world a couple times a year, and this is why I do this job.
I'm just excited for it, the way they've been playing. Like, it's one of those things, since I've gotten to start here, every single time we have a LAN, single time we have a new event, the play just gets better. And it just keeps getting better and better and better. And I expect that it's just going to rise here, and then every single LAN after that, it's going to keep going. So I'm really excited to see these teams and what they can pull out.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning into our Spring LAN preview show. Remember, on our Twitter, Paladins Pro, you can find all the information that you need, including where you can watch these events or even buy tickets in the case of Las Vegas. We're going to go ahead and close things out here today, and we will see you in the broadcasts this weekend. Peace out.